We're in season 4 of Finding Common Ground, and in this season, we're exploring how is impact work actually being done in Singapore. There's actually a lot of causes that people champion in Singapore. Some are more mainstream causes, and I think some are a lot more niche than we think. There are groups supporting freeganism. There are groups supporting senior rabbit caregivers. There are groups supporting the rescuing of ugly fruit from supermarkets, right? And if that's your jam and you have picked a niche cause, you might be wondering, how on earth do I advocate for it? Something that people may not have heard about or something that people don't care about, right? So in this session, I'm super excited to talk to Firdaus, who has a niche cause of his own that I'm going to let him talk about. So Firdaus, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You are the founder of the Black Sampan, and you also have a niche cause that you do under the Black Sampan?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Tell us more about this cause that you have aligned yourself with.
Sure. Yes, I'm the founder of the Black Sampan, and within the Black Sampan, we also support our Ground Out initiative, which is Orang Laut SG. And the Black Sampan, we really focus on social impact.
Yeah.
From our clients to the work that we do, we really curate who we want to work with. And sometimes we really want to focus on the issues that we care about.
Yeah.
So Orang Laut SG is a movement whereby we support indigenous communities in Singapore.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times people might not know that indigenous communities exist in Singapore.
Yeah.
And in the constitution, you would know that Malays are indigenous, but we are also trying to offer a different perspective about being indigenous in Singapore, who are the first people, many different groups.
Yeah.
We have the Orang Kalang, Orang Selat, Orang Seleta, which is not in Malaysia, Orang Gelam. All these individuals has assimilated themselves within the Malay archipelago, or in Singapore, just the CMIO model, just Malays, right? So I think for us is, how do we dissect this, re-energize and reclaim narratives of these people?
Yeah.
And me coming from the Orang Laut community as well,
Yeah.
I think it's important. It's a cause and a passion that I've started in 2020.
Yeah.
So I thought this is a small but important cause that I've taken on that I cannot stop. Yeah, because I'm in too deep.
Well, you come from the community itself.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So maybe for the listeners who are not familiar with the phrase Orang Laut, could you just give a simple explanation of what that is?
Sure.
Yeah.
Orang Laut means people of the sea. However, this is also a loose term. If you can ask any academic, they would look into Orang Laut as sea gypsy or sea nomads.
Mhm.
But these terms are also used by other coastal communities,
Yeah.
because people who are based in coastal areas such as the islands, they refer to themselves as Orang Laut of a certain island. Later on, these terms were further dissected and used differently. I always refer to it as a loose term, an umbrella term
Yeah.
that defines different coastal communities. Yeah, for example, my grandparents and my great-grandparents, they used to live in this island called Pulau Semakau, which is today a landfill. Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's how I got started.
We're definitely going to spend some time on this podcast exploring how you have successfully, or even the unsuccessful moments where you've tried to advocate for this really, really niche cause that listeners might be hearing of for the very first time themselves.
Yep.
But I do think it's useful for everyone to hear what was the origin story, right? Because I think everyone who decides to support a niche cause, they don't decide, I'm going to support a cause that no one has heard of.
Yeah.
It's more like there was an awakening moment, an origin story of what got me into this thing. Yeah. So share with us, what was your trigger point?
I think the catalyst was I saw a poster, and this poster basically talks about Pulau Semakau, my island, or used to be my island, as a landfill, as an award-winning landfill. So I thought that, it's more than a landfill. It actually angers me so much. And at that moment, I was like, I took a photo, I posted on Instagram. So this is not just a landfill. This is my ancestral island. I grew up on the islands. And I think this is so important for me to tell people about. How can I tell people? It's just through word of mouth. I thought about what I could do.
Yeah.
But I was sitting on it for many years actually.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything until COVID strikes. And I think during that time I was just having a meal with my family, because I think the positive things about COVID is that you're very introspective. You're at home with your families, and there was a time whereby we got to really connect. And I spoke to my mom. She was talking to me about the dishes, the food that she shares, the asam pedas, very humble, simple asam pedas, shared amongst many Nusantaran flavors. But the thing about that is the types of fish and how she caught the fish on the islands, and the time of day, the seasons. So there's so many stories about the island. I was like, you know what? You should be telling me these stories. You told me many times. Many people should know about these stories. That's how I got started. It started as an Instagram page whereby I use my family stories as ways to just reconnect to a space that is once lost. I think that's how it got started. And it started growing momentum. We just come from a place whereby we just want to share. And then, it just grew. The people started to be more aware of the islands, and they were like, oh, I didn't know Singapore was actually, the islands were actually inhabited. We thought it was always been a landfill. We thought that Pulau Bukom, it has always been a petrochemical space, but actually it's made out of 4 islands. Pulau Bukom today is a petrochemical space. However, it's made out of Pulau Bukom Kecil, Pulau Bukom Besar, Pulau Ula, and these communities have been moved to mainland Singapore. And the people that I know of are still around, at least half of them. And people like my grandparents, when they first moved to mainland Singapore in 1977, they had to move into a one-room flat. That's what they could afford. And because of that, they went back to the seas, because that's where their livelihoods were. It gave them sustenance. And also, that's what my great-grandfather and my grandparents were good at. So they stayed on the islands up till 90s. That's where I got access to the islands. I learned a lot from them. And I grew to love the islands. And we also have strong connections to Riau as well. Where my families are. We would, continue our island traditions even till today. So it has always been a very personal journey for me.
So what I'm hearing from your story is, I guess, a certain principle to understand what draws people into niche causes, right? It's a combination of, the trigger point might be anger, right? Because like when we get angry or irritated or frustrated by something, it's like a sign that there's a certain standard that we care about that has been violated. We may not even understand what that standard was about, but we understand like something's not right. I feel a little violated and I need to set things right, right? That there's the anger that could be the trigger. But anger alone doesn't allow you to fully advocate for something, because what I'm hearing in your story thread, there's also love in it, right? And it's quite closely related in a way, right? We get angry about the things that we love and care for.
That's right.
So we may use anger to set set a fire under our bum or something like that gets us going. But you can't advocate for the cause only with anger.
That's right.
Right? You need to let people know about what you love and what you care about. And that's what I sense is more, I would say it's more of the flavor of your advocacy, right? But there is both. There is both, right? There are things that I'm sure still make you a little angry, or a lot angry, right? And maybe you could speak into that, like how have you balanced this? I love, and because I love, I do feel angry. How do I balance those, especially when I'm trying to get someone else to understand who they're like, what's there to be angry about? I think spot on. Not everyone shares the same
emotions.
Yeah.
I think anger comes from a place of passion and
Yeah.
love, and also protection.
Yes.
By being able to protect the things that you care for,
Mm.
it is a more reactive sort of emotion.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. While that is important, it cannot sustain myself. I cannot be angry all the time.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of balancing is also understanding that anger is a catalyst. However, we don't have to react all the time.
Yeah.
We need to also take a step back and look into what are the strategies moving forward to use this emotion and harness this. And I think what I've learned along the way is
Yeah.
that I need to be able to create more sustainable solutions. So it's also creating boundaries within myself as well.
Yes.
Whereby people think advocacy as just one way. And I
Yeah.
think there's this perception about advocacy just being angry and vocal and loud. People think that it is a dirty word. I don't think it is. Advocacy comes in many forms. A celebration is the form of advocacy as well. For example, we recently had Hari Orang Pulau, which is Islanders Day.
Yeah.
We celebrated
Yes,
our
congratulations.
culture.
It's
Thank
the
you.
first one,
The
right?
very first one,
Yeah.
yeah. I was just looking back and looking at all the photos and videos of them just enjoying themselves. And I looking at the media coverage as well, right? For example, the Straits Times and CNA acknowledging that this is an indigenous festival. And it's a big win.
Yes.
And for me, it is also a form of like using positive elements into forms of advocacy, because advocacy looks like we are winning. It looks like we are still thriving. Our communities are not left in the past.
Yes.
We don't focus on nostalgia. We focus on the present and
Yeah.
what's ahead.
Yeah.
So I think that's a form of very subtle advocacy, but
Yeah.
still important.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a really good insight there, that it's already hard enough for people to care about that niche cause that they didn't hear about ever, right? And it makes it even harder if you surround your niche cause with emotions that a lot of people perceive as negative, right?
Yep.
And they do need, like, if the whole point of advocacy is to bring along more allies or more fellow champions of it, you kind of need to build enough positive like emotions around it. So we're definitely not talking about like fake positivity, you know, or like let's just do it to draw people in. But like, what are the more inspiring emotions that attract people in? Yeah, like the joy, the excitement. I mean, I thought it was interesting that you said we don't want to just use nostalgia, right? And nostalgia, I don't think it's seen as a negative emotion, but it's a bit of like a downbeat emotion.
No, yeah, you're right. And nostalgia is very much focused on the idea of being in the past and looking back, and also the idea of loss.
Yes.
So I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's important, but at the same time, to move forward, we don't want to be left in the past. We are still here.
Yes.
We need to celebrate that. I think that's the point I was trying to make. With Hari Orang Pulau, we are still here.
Yes.
And I think we successfully did that. And at the same time, to your point about drawing other people who might be interested with different series of sessions and workshops, right? I think that was something that we have curated to make sure that we are able to not only celebrate but also educate.
Yes.
Education is also a form of advocacy in my point of view.
Yeah.
Because education comes with so many layers of deconstructing what kind of preconceived notions you have about a certain community. For example, these communities are not just fishermen, they have so much of indigenous knowledge. And we brought in speakers, we brought in experts, even community members who share their experiences. I think for me that was beautiful, because we're able to get different groups of individuals to talk about one particular theme, but in many different forms and ways. And I think looking into more tangible parts, we were able to garner descendants to come to the event as well, be part of the festival. What they did was they set up booths, they were selling their merch, and we are able to support them as in any ways that we could. And at the same time, we brought in different community members from different islands. Singapore used to make up of seven islands. They came and then they were just telling stories, and I thought it was really beautiful. But I think other than just celebrating, we look into how can we further document and push our cause. Because for us, it's not only a day of celebration, it is also making sure we are able to do cultural mapping, we are able to understand the community's needs, and how can we further develop programs that could support communities who were once challenged because when they moved to mainland Singapore,
Yeah.
they had some difficulties because of resettlement.
Yeah, no, I love that. And for those listeners who have their little niche cause that they're trying to champion, like some threads you can pick up from that is what is present that we can celebrate and really like push up to the front, right? What are details or things that we should educate people about? And is there anything that we want to document so that there is some ability to repeat and rinse and like, you know, if you don't record something, it's as if it doesn't exist, right? What is it that we could document as a statistic or as a storytelling, just some kind of visible, observable thing, an artifact that people can look at and like, oh, now your cause doesn't feel so abstract, like so hard to grasp.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think you've like done that like really intentionally and skillfully, and that's like really great. I want to move us to the particular context of Singapore,
Sure.
right? And doing advocacy work is hard. Doing advocacy work for a niche cause is harder. Doing advocacy for a niche cause in Singapore is hard in its own special way, right? Could you share with us what is the hardest things that you have had to encounter while telling people about this cause that you feel so greatly for? Yeah, what are some like the barriers you hit against that, like, wow, that's tough?
I think as a ground initiative, we do as much as we could, but we also understand that Singapore is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of advocacy, we can't do the same as compared to the US or in other places, right? But I took that into consideration because of my time at WWF as well.
Yeah.
So in my previous workplace, what we did was we did a bit of advocacy, but we need to understand that there are parameters that you cannot step out of, right? So one example is there was a campaign that we did called Ivory Lane.
Yeah, under the WWF.
Worldwide Fund for Nature in Singapore. And I think there was a campaign we did 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
We wanted to close a loophole where ivory that enters the market before a certain time that can still be sold in Singapore. The loophole is that we cannot determine whether this ivory is a vintage ivory or is an ivory that is from just 2 weeks ago. We created a fictitious brand. It's called Ivory Lane. We created a website, got models in. We did a shoot. So we created just like how a brand would launch. And because of that, of course we get an uproar. That was what we expected. We wanted to really highlight this loophole that it's illegal to sell ivory in Singapore, basically. People on social media, they started tagging NParks, NEA, and say how this is allowed. It's not okay to be selling ivory openly.
Yeah.
But then again, because of our research and investigation, we found that there were more than 50 stores still selling ivory in Singapore openly.
Yeah.
And it's just that we are inflating the truth. We really wanted to highlight a certain loophole. We did speak to the authorities about this. This is a campaign we're going to run, and we pre-informed them already. So we did our due diligence. It's not that we are against any sort of government bodies. We wanted to make sure that we have everything done properly. Within a year, I think there was a public consultation, and then the ban happened. The full ban of ivory.
Wow.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's all us, but I think what we did was we really wanted to highlight online sentiments and the sentiments on ground. I think that's what we did. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm seeing in that example you showed is it's kind of it is provocative, right? There's a provocation, but there's also a respectfulness in your provocation, right? You like pre-warned like the decision makers that be like, oh, by the way, we're going to be doing this, right? So that we don't get in trouble. And I think that respectful provocation Although that feels very like, how can it be? Like it's so paradoxical. Is there such a thing as a respectful provocation? But I think it's that paradox that allowed you all to achieve the success, because ultimately what you wanted was a ban.
Yep.
Right? So I think if it was a completely disrespectful provocation, it might still have resulted in a ban, but maybe it would have been accompanied with a lot of bad blood. Let's say, like, I don't like you guys anymore. I don't trust you. You shouldn't have done that. You should have let me know. Yeah, so I do think that's a very tough thing for all of us as advocates to consider, because some of the truths that we want to name are naturally provocative, right? And there is that philosophical stance we have to take. Should I show respect or should I disrespect? And I think that has a lot to do with how much do you need to work with the other side, or how much do I need to work with like people who I don't necessarily like or respect. Yeah, so it's a bit of like, how much respect do you want to show your, using a strong word, quote unquote, the enemy, right? Or the establishment, or the whatever it is that you feel very strongly may not be on your side. Yeah, so I think it isn't an easy answer for anyone doing advocacy work. Yeah, at all. So I'm wondering, like, how does that sit with you? Like, what does that make you think of?
I think for Orang Laut SG, we realized that the topic of indigenous people in Singapore might be a little bit contentious.
Yeah, say more about that.
and the thing is also opening up a can of worms about land rights potentially as well.
Okay.
And there's a global movement about how indigenous people are reclaiming their rights as indigenous people. I would say in Singapore, it's a very different setting. It's not the same as places in New Zealand or Australia, whereby land recognition of indigenous people are, being celebrated. I think for Orang Laut SG, what we try to do is we look into advocacy in another stance. We look into how are we able to navigate a space like Singapore and to advance our advocacy. I think to identify enemies would be a little bit problematic because we don't know who they are. And we have met a lot of people within the ministries who are really for our cause, and I think they're really nice people. And I think it's more of like, are we able to maneuver a space like Singapore, understand policies, influence policies, but not through the route of advocacy that is just anger and that is rooted in just pushing your cause as loudly as possible. We look at it as conversations that needs to be had, sometimes closed door as well. We use tools such as social media to talk about the uncomfortable things that needs to be addressed, and also the wrongs that needs to be right. So I think for us, there's no one solution. We learned along the way. When we first started this, of course, our stance was like, this is something that needs to be addressed. But I think realizing that the power of social media and also rallying people online and getting a certain reaction, it can be done. But at the same time, we need to understand that there needs to be follow-up and ask and call to actions. We cannot just rally people for the sake of it and just garner a certain reaction without any call to action or follow-ups. So I think it has to be strategically done, and also in a way that we want to make sure we are not trying to go against any sort of authority group. We want to work with them actually, because they are the one with the power. They are the decision makers, policy makers. We understand that the policies can be shaped. Singapore is still so young. We are still learning, right? I feel that I'm giving leeway to many different groups, even for myself as well. We are still very young. We need to be able to grow as a society. We need to have mindset changes and shifting attitudes as well along the way. It doesn't come with just one solution. It has to come in many, many years of work and advocacy on ground.
No, I appreciate the graciousness of your answer actually. I think first the grace that you are extending to yourself and fellow advocates of niche groups, niche causes, that you are young, you are learning, you're going to make mistakes, and some of them are really going to bite you, right? And I do appreciate the gracious framing of like our country's youth, right? That we are a young country, and there is a certain grace, and we can argue whether it's a deserved and undeserved grace, right? That we are all trying to get it right, and we're all going to get it wrong from time to time because we're all young and trying, right? And I think it's a delicate thing of like how much grace can we give the establishment, the authorities, whatever it is that you are up against, and similarly, how much grace can actually the more powerful extend to those who are less powerful. And if there is mutual grace from both sides, we can actually get through a lot of very difficult discussions about niche causes, and maybe the barriers that are in the way. But a lot of your sharing also reminded me of like the principles of conflict negotiation, right? Where if you have a niche cause that you need to advocate for, and you know it's going to come into conflict with people, especially like more powerful people, or more disagreeable people, whatever that may be, a good conflict negotiator knows that you always start with interest first. It's interest-based negotiation first, right? And I think it's when we're passionate about a cause, it can be really, really difficult to think about the other party's interests.
That's right.
Right? Like when you're talking about your ivory cause, like it was in the interest of the authority figures that they know something like that is going to happen, right? And you thought of their interests, and that's why you inform them. And then there's this like, oh, thank you, now I trust you for another day.
Yep.
And maybe in the future this trust will pan out well for me. But yeah, I think for advocates, it's the personal discipline and personal mastery to like, you can't always afford to go off on your own interests only and not think of the other's interests.
Yep.
Yeah, because your cause is going to intersect with many other people's own causes.
Yep.
Right. And if we want to move anything forward, we need to find that lovely Venn diagram where my interest meets your interest, and we can surprisingly move something forward. Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate that about your story. Yeah, I think in advocacy work, right, we're definitely going to come across stakeholders with quite different values from us from time to time.
Definitely.
So maybe you could share with us like real life examples where you experienced that conflict or that clash of values, and how did you decide to manage it? Yeah.
Having run Orang Laut SG, we have experienced a fair share of our experiences. I think not necessarily know how to navigate that when we first started, because we are still very young. We're like, oh, okay, is this okay?
Yeah.
We start to question ourselves, does this sit right with me? And I think recently we were just doing a tour at West Coast Park, where that's where a lot of community members are, and it's an important space for the community as well. And beside West Coast Park, there's also a beautiful yacht club. Did you know?
No, I did not know that.
There's a lot of beautiful yachts.
Okay.
And yeah, so because of that, there was a lovely lady who approached us, and she asked whether we are from the community.
Yeah.
Because we're carrying like old photos and of community members, and this is where conflicting of views comes in.
Yeah.
She mentioned that I have a daughter, and she is part of a program at West Coast Park, and she sometimes cleans up the park. But we see the community space is really dirty. There's a lot of plastics, and I don't know how to answer to her. And I keep going to the community members, and of course they don't speak a word of English, and she's white.
Yeah.
And they just shrug off their shoulders. And she took it as they do not care about the environment or plastic pollution. And I was trying to really understand her, why she's coming from this point of view. She pointed to me at the debris of boats, that are left unattended. But there's so many layers to that story, because the debris of the boats doesn't come from the community. It could come from hobbyists. It could also come from people who have passed on, who are not able to manage their old boats, the old sampans,
Yeah.
and the community members are all of old age. They try out their best. They have a system to clean up the space,
Yeah.
and that's the only space they have left with. So they actually care and clean that space on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Plastic may come from other floating debris, yacht clubs, I don't know.
Yeah.
But this negative perception of indigenous communities, not only in Singapore,
Yeah.
but also places in Southeast Asia as well, whereby
Yeah.
they look at them as polluters and encroaching into environment, but actually they are the stewards of the environment, has always been. And we tried to correct her. I said something along the lines that, ma'am, you need to understand that you are in a very privileged space, because for you to be able to care for the environment, it comes from a place of you having your basic needs met. These individuals are still living day to day, going out fishing and relying on fishing as a way to sustain their families and themselves. And I also try to further explain that this community space is taken care of. We were trying to advocate for the protection of this space. So there's a lot of internal challenges that we already have.
Yeah.
So I don't appreciate her coming to the community, an indigenous community, to say that you don't care, And she doesn't speak a word of Malay, and I think the barrier is really problematic. And I further asked her, what do you do? And she said that I am a member of the yacht club, and she pointed to the yacht club, this shiny, beautiful yacht club, and I own a yacht. And I was like, that's where the anger comes in. I was like, ma'am, do you know that the yacht is one of the worst polluters on Earth? The carbon emissions that it exudes, right, would easily overtakes whatever carbon emission the community is doing within a year. And because of that, she also mentioned that she is in the aviation business and doing sustainability consultant. There's so many paradoxes and ironies to that statement that she made. It wasn't very nice. It wasn't very pleasant to be confronted by someone foreign and coming from an indigenous community. I think there's so many wrongs there. So we wrote in to her company, her CEO, to say that this is not okay. Please do not approach us ever again. We respectfully gotten a reply from them. And at the same time, we forwarded this issue to the minister and the MPs as well of the area. And we got favorable replies from them, because they understood our stance. They say that this lady has approached different MPs as well.
Okay.
So I thought it was a threat to our community. And Singapore's system, they're very efficient. They would really act on complaints sometimes. So I didn't want these complaints come into effect and would affect the community further. So because of that, we had a bigger conversation with the community. We brought Mr. Desmond Lee to the community space, where he tried to understand the community's needs. We bring in community members to share some of the struggles. And because of that, we start to see changes within the community space. They have started building different things that could assist better. They try to also troubleshoot some of the soil erosion that's happening there as well. Because of that, we are also trying to look into a list of recommendations to better represent the Orang Laut and Orang Pulau communities within the area as well.
What I appreciate about your story is that there was a situation that was quite sour for you, was not a fun thing. But you didn't stop at, okay, I'm just going to write into the CEO and get her in trouble and de-end it. There was the desire to how can we use this difficult situation and turn it into an actionable opportunity to further educate people, right? Or to further make visible the issues that we are running into. And through that determination, you found new allies and new decision makers who at least are aware, right, that this of what matters to you. I don't suppose you ever saw or heard back from the lady ever again.
No. But to we also offered the company free cultural sensitivity training. It's not a pettiness. We just really want to help. So let us teach you more about our ways.
It can come off a little aggro,
Yeah, but we're happy to give it for free.
Okay. Well, but actually, like now that like some time has passed from that event, if you could do it all over again, right? Do you think you would do it any different in any way?
When I was approached,
Yeah. If you replayed that incident again, would you have done it any different?
I would have said something worse. No, I'm kidding.
Oh dear.
No, I don't think I would have done anything differently because I did my best to really not react. So she was doing a lot of the talking actually towards the end, and then I started to tell her about why we're doing this and why it's not okay for her to approach communities just like that. And it was followed up with a proper email. And I think the solution was not to reprimand her, but it's more towards she needs to have better understanding and it's not okay. Her actions are not okay. It actually have negative effects on communities that are very vulnerable, not in all over the place. So I think she needs to understand that.
I think it's an interesting distinction and issue that advocates would face, right? At what point do I take it out of the realm of, okay, let's have a conversation to try and solve this, to like, all right, the conversation is not enough. We actually have to start to document some of these things and start to push it up to make the issue more visible, the particularities of the incident that is important to us, because it's not about like a he said, she said, and it's like a petty squabble kind of thing. You're looking at like, what are the standards that are being violated here? What are the standards that must be protected, right? What are the boundaries that we really need to maintain down here? And I think that takes quite a bit of reflection, right? Would you say you did all that reflection by yourself or with a trusted community? Like how do you arrive at these decisions?
Of course, there's the self-reflection that I have to do. But also at the same time, we spoke as a group. The Orang Laut SG group, we spoke and we look at what is okay because they were also pretty disturbed by it because they haven't been confronted, in such a form and way. And I think they were a bit shaken. So we had to have that discussion on whether this is okay and what is not okay. We need to be able to dissect that. Some of the actions, they are valid and some of them are not valid. And at the same time, we consulted a couple of people as well, people outside of the community who work with other indigenous groups. And they offered us perspectives. So I think for us, it's not only making sure we're able to do it alone. We look into drawing experiences from others who may have experienced similar stuff. So we're creating allies. I think allyship is really important. Also understanding that we are new in this space. We need to also understand that some of the things that we think is okay may not be okay. So it's a learning process, you know.
So I like two things that I'm hearing from your account. I think the first is like for the advocate of the niche cause, like it's really important that you do not sit by yourself in your own little room and think these things through, because you could very well be wrong, right? So you do need that self-reflection space. And beyond that, there has to be this wisdom of the community or the wisdom of the collective that are also equally vested in the thing that you care about. And there is that, let's talk as a group about what are the boundaries of what's okay, what's not okay, and why is it important to us. I think it's so important for advocates to see that a lot of their work is leadership work, right? And leadership work is hard, right? And one of the most practical definitions I've heard of the difference between managing and leading. So like you could be managing a cause, which sounds very weird and paradoxical. Can you manage a cause? Or leading the cause? And advocacy actually is more towards the leading stuff, right? So the workable definition of managing and leading is all of the work that happens within boundaries. That means there's a lot of work to do. We're not going to go up to the electric fence of the boundaries of values and okays and standards and all that. Like, let's leave that alone. Let's just manage the situation, right? Which is you could have very well managed that white woman on a yacht, right? But what you had to discern is, at what point do I have to step in and lead my community or lead the cause, which is leadership work is working on the boundary, at the boundary, with the boundary, and if necessary, we move that boundary, right? So it is hard because a boundary it feels like an electric fence. No one really wants to go up there because there's a sizzle to it, there's a voltage to it, and it's not fun. But that is the experience that advocacy brings you regularly to. Go and touch the electric fence, like zzz, Well, you shouldn't spend every day touching an electric fence. It's probably not good for your health. I think I appreciate not just the courage and the conviction that you have bothering the electric fences that need to be bothered. But I also sense like there is a recognition that I do have to pause myself. I do have to check with my community just to make sure that I am coming from the right space. Yeah, so I think that is wise. But we're going to start to close off this conversation. Let's talk about like the future forward to it, because every niche cause is going to wonder like, how on earth do I keep this going?
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk about the sustainability of your niche cause. Like, what does the future look like for you, and how are you developing that future for your niche cause? Yeah.
I think having done this for quite a bit of time, I feel that the only way that we can grow is to move the needle from ground up to a CLG and a charity and officially IPC. I think that's where the trajectory is. But it's not only to conserve a heritage or a culture, but it's also to look into representation. So one of the things that we want is to achieve an indigenous learning center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that's our goal. We have seeded this idea to a couple of stakeholders. I think a bit of allies as well, have heard from us. We really just want to share, this is what we want.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, realizing that it is not an easy task. It is a lot of work, a lot of research, and bringing in the people that needs to be brought in.
Yeah.
So for me, it's also about passing the torch.
Yeah.
We cannot do it alone. We need to be able to find younger descendants, people who are allies, people who want to work for and with us.
Yeah.
And that's basically expansion in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
And I think what we wanted to do is also having more advocates within this space. I think that's how you grow a movement. And we have been really hopeful because a lot of younger descendants have been coming to us and say that, I come from this specific community and island and I want to support you. And people from outside of the community as well want to come and support us. We had about, we started with about 50 volunteers. Now we have about 450 volunteers.
Oh, wow.
Potentially just waiting whenever we have any things that you want to work with us for.
Yeah.
We continue to grow.
Yes.
I think it's also a learning point for me as well. Every few months, I need to sit down and just reflect and also look into like whether the team has outgrown their role. So I think it's managing the cost, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
Managing people and also always adapting and trying to be a leader, because I feel like the leadership that I was taught, from my old workplaces.
Yes.
It's a very top down. Now we have to, relearn and also grow to be a leader that is fitted for the community today and the youth today.
Yeah.
So I cannot scold them anymore.
Yes, and perhaps that's a good thing.
Yep, I agree. Maybe just some light advice.
Yeah. Some of the dots I'm connecting to your story is, at Common Ground, like one of the things that we learned from talking to a lot of practitioners about how can you sustain your work moving forward, we've realized that there's a Venn diagram of interests that the advocate or the impact practitioner always has to be mindful of, right? There is one circle is the funder, the second circle would be the practitioner, right? And then the third circle would be your affected community or the community that you choose to impact.
Yeah.
And you're always trying to find that sweet little Venn diagram spot of what meets the funder's interest, what meets my own interest as a practitioner, and what meets the interest of the community that I want to impact. And any other permutation is actually not as sustainable, because you do see sometimes you see work where the funder and the practitioner are actually very aligned with like, yes, it's good to go. You know, I'm so glad you're funding my amazing work. And then you didn't check in with the community.
Yeah.
And the community is like, wow, we didn't ask for this.
Yep.
You know, so that's not sustainable. And then you have like, sometimes you have other stories where it is the practitioner and the community are fully aligned. They share common interests. We're all going full steam ahead, but it's a struggle to find a funder who believes in it. And so very often either the community or the practitioner will decide to step into that circle and become the funder. And that's okay if there is enough resources, but most often you'll find that either the community or the practitioner feels too drained after a while to become the funder. So it's useful for external funder, if possible, to come along to support the cause, right? And then the last permutation, which actually people don't really think about, but I think it's very important to think about for practitioners like you and like me to some extent, is that you have funders who really want to do something and the communities are aligned with the funders, but somehow the thing that they want to do doesn't sit well with the practitioner.
Yep.
Yeah, it's either like, oh, the practitioner's like, that's great, guys, but I'm being underpaid here. Or that's great, guys, but this just does not sit well with my values of how I think the work should be done.
Yep.
Yeah, for all sorts of reasons. And if funders don't pay attention to the practitioner's interests, or the communities don't think about the practitioner's interests, then practitioners leave the field because they're like, I'm done. I'm like burnt out. I care, but I need to stop caring because like I can't last.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's so important for us to see like, how do we find that sweet Venn diagram spot?
Yeah, I think I resonate with that really well. Because, you know, to run this, we are grown up, right? We are not a charity.
Yeah.
So funding is always difficult.
Yeah.
People think that just because we have collaborations with agencies, it means they're heavily funded. We're not.
Yes.
Sometimes it's really just because we want to push a certain program or agenda. And I think support may come from, you know, our supporters coming to our events or coming to support us in our little tours and sharing our voice on social media, but that doesn't pay as well.
Yeah.
I think what we need to realize is that the realities of being an advocate might not be, you know, all peachy all the time, because sometimes to sustain a team and even yourself is so challenging. I think you're right to say that sometimes a funder might come in, but they have very different goals and agendas that might not align with your you know, objectives. And where do you draw the lines, and how can you meet in the middle? You know, and do you also push this opportunity away? So that kind of decision making that you have to do. There are a couple of times that we did because this doesn't align with our objectives. Do you want the money? Of course, right? Because you want to fund our work and the team. But does it advance your cause? If it doesn't, then why do you do it? You know? So I think we need to sit down and have that bitter truth sometimes. But I think funder alignment is really important. If you're hearing this, we're still finding for funders. So
I definitely think the best work can happen when there's a happy marriage between the right funder who shares the same interests in the same cause. Or the same approach as the practitioner, and that's really like hard to find. And I definitely wish for you to find a funder who believes in supporting indigenous communities.
Thank you.
And doing it in a way that is not extractive, to do it in a way that is ethical and respectful and full of dignity. And I am
agency and autonomy.
Agency and autonomy. And it's like, if you are out there, magical funder, listening to this, like, you know who to call. And if you ever do, you need to ask, Orang Laut SG to find a way to organize for you a taste of their food because we didn't get a chance to say at all anything about the food that their community makes. I have to tell you, the porridge and the black ink squid that they make is exceptional. And you can actually order it on their website. It is amazing. It is so amazing.
Orang.Laut.SG.
We'll put the link to Orang Laut SG, and you can definitely order the food there. Yeah, so thank you so much for this conversation, Firdaus. We're gonna go into some simple closing questions, answer from the gut, go by instinct.
Sure.
Right? So just complete this line. If you want to change something in Singapore, you have to...
You have to be brave.
Mm.
You have to have strength.
Yeah, I agree. When you look at how people approach changing things, what is a way that you have seen that actually causes a lot more brokenness and fragmentation? And what is a way that actually creates a lot more wholeness or wholesomeness? Yeah.
I think I will draw an example when I was at my previous workplace.
Yeah.
I start to feel myself as smaller and smaller because in the topic of climate change, we all feel so small. And am I contributing enough when, looking at the Paris Agreement, looking at the commitments that are not being committed to, and we start to feel so small. But once you start to hone that, there are like-minded individuals, allies who are pushing for the same cause, there's hope. I think it's very easy to go into that climate fatigue or advocacy fatigue as well.
Yeah.
But you need to find your grounding individuals who are able to uplift you. I think that really worked for me.
Thank you. Yeah, and then, for our last closing question, what is a community or a thing that you feel really grateful for, and why?
I think I'm really grateful for the community that I was born into, the Orang Laut Orang Pulau community. The elders are always very generous in sharing their knowledge, supporting our cause, trying to understand what we try to achieve for. And I'm really grateful for the love that they have given. But at the same time, outside of the community, we also have allies that we have created. Continentalists, our research partner, we also have Common Ground. Like you guys who have always been steering us in the right direction. And also people along the way, individuals and also volunteers and supporters who are always coming to our events and supporting our programs. I think this is great individuals who always believe in us, So we were nothing and we are still nothing-ish, but we are trying to get there somewhere. And I think having a community really helps.
Something I'm trying to practice with each guest is to remember to leave them with the gift, right, that I got from them. So I just love to share with you that what I'm getting from you and this conversation is, your deep love for where you came from. And I appreciate it because not many of us think of the lineage and the elders, and the traditions that brought us to where we are. And you're a reminder of how important identity is to giving us a sense of self. And power and dignity. And I appreciate that as a reminder. Thank you.
That was beautiful. That's going to be my new ringtone.
Thank you very much. And I am wishing you many new funders and supporters so that one day your cause may not be that niche anymore.
Thank you.